Hello, dearest friends. Today we're going to talk about the time lag of the 2 by 2s. Okay, what is a time lag? Well, it's an interesting phenomenon that was I was alerted to by a former 2 by 2 minister. He was just talking about some things in his background during his 2 by 2 ministering years, and he was talking about how the 2 by 2s seem to be 40 years or more behind the general population in particular trends or ideas and things like that. And I think that he's correct. That's true that when you're inside the 2 by 2s, things that might be contemporarily, let's say, acceptable, maybe in his case, he was talking about, going to see a therapist, for 2 by 2s, that they would still be 40 years behind in the opinions about something like that. So that's true, but it's also true that this time lag situation applies to X2 by 2s also, because when a person leaves a 2 by 2s, I mean, they're already got a time lag problem because they've been, let's say, chronologically retarded. You know what I mean by, I don't mean a mental problem. I mean their time is set back by whatever, 40 years or something. So when they leave, there's so much ground for them to uh, make up for, and the ground is moving, you know, as time does move, that they have a difficulty, like to say, getting up to speed. And so they don't really get up to speed on much of anything. They only get cursorily, let's say, up to speed, or more likely they would be even maybe 10 or 20 years behind on a number of cursory topics. So you're asking, what am I getting at? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of them. So one of them is, I noticed that in one of the other X2 by 2 channels is now talking about how uh, this conversion therapy for LGBT people, basically, pray the gay away and all this kind of stuff. Like, look, the conversion therapy is some idiotic thing that went on in the 1980s. I don't think there's anybody stupid enough to go to conversion therapy anymore. And it was a stupid thing that was drafted up by some ridiculous Christian fundamentalists. But of course, these X2 by 2s contemporarily now, who are, they think that this conversion therapy stuff is a serious threat, that it's ongoing in the here and now, right? Well, obviously, like I said, that's 40 years behind the times, okay? They're just catching up. There's a number of other things they're just catching up on as well. So one of them is on music, right? So they're the kinds of music they're interested in is usually stuff that is maybe 10 or 20 years behind. And another issue that they're chronologically retarded on is, let's say, contemporary religion, right? So the X2 by 2s, they leave, and there's a number of them, like I said, who become atheists. And how do they become atheists? Well, like, they go on the internet and they start listening to these public talking heads who are known as the New Atheist Movement. So Christopher Hitchens, Dawkins, and so forth. And they think this is, contemporarily great material. No, the New Atheist Movement is like 20 years old. It's a old movement. Okay, it's what they call cringe, meaning like you're not with the contemporary times, mate. Okay, they if you want to know what's the all the rage, or what's the so-called what the early adopters are doing in 2025, well, they're the young people, the Gen Zers, the early adopters are becoming Roman Catholics. I know that may sound crazy to you, but you can go and like look it up. Look in the New York Times, it'll tell you the hottest thing for young people in New York City on a whatever weekend evening is to go to a church in downtown Manhattan. Okay, this is the truth. Like, I mean, there's enormous a number of Gen Zers who are converting to Roman Catholicism, including, I mean, there's a YouTube channel called The War on Beauty, and it's a young Gen Zer from Houston, I believe, and she's the same thing. It's just it's an enormous number. But of course, these X2 two by twos, they're like I said, they're 20 years behind, and it's because they themselves were chronologically retarded when they were in the two by twos. So when they leave, they're just trying to catch up with the people who they wanted to be with or wanted to be like, but that was 20 years before, right? So they can't. It's like another way to think about this is like when you're a young person grow up in a two by twos and all your friends are talking about certain television shows and certain movies, and you don't know them because you're living in a two by two house. So finally you escape the two by two house at whatever 18 or 20 or whatever, and you finally get yourself a TV and you go hog wild watching TV programs and movies, and you have to get all these old movies and stuff, and you're watching movies now which are like 20 years old, and you go and talking to your friends about it, and friends are saying, I can't even remember that movie anymore. That was 20 years ago. So you're trying to build this like so-called popular culture foundation, but you're 20 years behind. And so you don't even have time to catch up to the contemporary thing. That's the issue. It's like it's not just that's an obvious one that I think any X2 by 2 will understand that issue of like basically having this huge block of cultural touch points that are just don't exist in their life, and they've had to backfill them. But because there's so much to backfill and to try to contemporarily fill at the same time, they can't. And they can't achieve that. And so there's always holes in their, let's say, ability to fit in with their contemporary peers. And this not only applies to like movies and TV, which would be the most obvious thing, but to many, many other topics. And like I said, this new atheist thing it's very common. I mean, if you there's an X two by two guy. He's decided to start a YouTube channel. It's all about. He's interviewing X two by twos who are atheists. Now, I mean, it's pathetic. That both the people he's interviewing are, like I said, they're like raised on new atheist videos, Chris Hitchens, Dawkins, that kind of stuff like that. I mean, it's neckbeard level Reddit tier cringe. Okay, it's sad, but somehow this person thinks it. No, I mean, I shouldn't pick on this poor man. You can go look up his education level. He has a 2-year associate's degree from some community college in Central Washington. I mean, it's just a joke. But anyways, I'm sorry, I shouldn't pick on him. But he also should be a bit more humble about his capabilities. It's 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 sad that these sorts of displays. Another thing they chronologically retarded is this thing where X2 by twos they'll go out, especially again ones who are become atheists, that they want to get tattoos, or they want to cut their hair to like the women, cut their hair to look like I don't know how to say this, like really short hair, like what we used to call bull dykes. I mean, this is they think this is the rage. I mean, hello, that's not cool anymore. Again, getting tattoos, that's not cool anymore. That's not an edgy thing to do. Nor is cutting your hair look like a bull like edgy thing to do. It just shows that you're culturally retarded. Sorry, chronologically retarded. You're stuck. You're trying to do something you thought was cool, but that's 10 or 15 years ago. It's sad. I mean, I don't know how else to tell them, but this is a main pro this is a big problem with two X2 by twos because they have this huge hole in their understanding. It takes in order for you to get yourself out of this hole, you'd have to backfill for 50 years and have to be very proactive about the backfilling. Or you just forget about it. Don't backfill and don't pretend. Just, it's much easier if they would just go into some Christian denomination and, continue on the path. Then they don't have to try to do all this backfilling, I guess. But The ones who become atheists, like they really want to do backfilling. It's really remarkable. Again, the same, another thing is about their conception of the LGBT people, right? Again, another one of these X2 by tours he's another admin of one of these support groups. He's got a channel, YouTube channel, and now he's made a big podcast with his wife. This is the same wife says she's bisexual and she's got a tranny kid and a queer other kids and all this business. And so they do a big podcast about Pride Month. Okay. What does Pride Month have to do with two by twos? It has nothing to do with them. Okay. Nothing. But he wants to talk about it because he thinks it's important. Why is it important? It's not important. You know when Pride festivals were important? In 1980s. Okay. Maybe the early 90s, but then it became cringe thereafter. You know, almost every gay person I know doesn't go to Pride festivals. They think they're cringe. They think they're corporate, like corporate sellout events. You know who wants to have pride festivals? Little stupid towns, podunk towns do. Why? Because they want to signal that somehow they're a cool place, just like the big cities. In the big cities, gay people don't go to these things, okay? But of course, here's this guy who's like 2 years out of two by twos and got a wife who's got says these things, and of course they've got to signal their pride and their. And he didn't even just say LGBT. He said LGBT plus QZ two spirit or some whatever the what nonsense is. You know, he's got to get all the curriculum. You know, again, it's embarrassing to listen to this stuff. It's so embarrassing. I and you know you could try your hardest to try to give them little nudges. Hey, like here's maybe an easier path. Here's a way out of your path. No, no, no. They just want to wallow in it, wallow away, and in their like chronologically retarded zone. Uh, Very sad. Hope that's not the case for you.